your attendance. The first item on our agenda outside of the general business items is officer election. So the most exciting time for us to talk about officer elections again. I know we've been kicking this can down the road, and I'm hoping between our last meeting, our workshop, which was a great day to really dive into some of these issues, that some folks have been able to just rethink and consider joining this lovely team and helping to facilitate the meetings. So from an officer elections perspective, Daryl, I'm going to ask you if you've received any interest from anybody, if anybody emailed you direct, and we can start from there if you have names.
No, I think they didn't want to spoil the surprise, so they were saving it for this meeting. Nobody has emailed me, but I think at this point you could ask for nominations from the floor.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the chair position. And I'd like to throw it out there to see if we have any nominations for the next chair of the Colorado ESInet group. And I know it's really hard to get off mute and get a word in edgewise, so we'll be patient while everyone fights for their airtime.
Otherwise, you will suffer in awkward silence until someone is nominated.
We'll just sit and stare at you. I put my camera on for a reason. So I want to also add in there that I am willing to mentor whomever would like to take the chair position. So a walk alongside them, and it would be the chair and the vice chair positions. So still attend the meetings, maybe even meet with you before the meeting to even get on calls with you. I think this is a great opportunity for mentorship and a great opportunity for someone to just dive in and really start to learn what we're doing from an ESInet perspective and those next steps. So I don't want anyone to feel like they would just be thrown into this and here you go and all this is going to land on your shoulders. I would definitely make sure there's a good handoff and that you're feeling confident and mentor you any way that I can.
Hey, Kimberly.
Yes.
This is Tina Powell.
Yes.
With your so kind offer to mentor, I would be happy to nominate myself.
Fantastic, Tina. Thank you so much. Yeah. Do we have any other folks that are interested in the chair position? All right. Well, then I'm going to close the nominations for chair. And if you are a voting member and you disagree, I'm going to call for a vote for anybody who attests Tina being our next chair of the ESInet group. All right. Congratulations, Tina, and thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. You're very welcome.
All right, so now we will open it up for the vice chair position. The intent of the vice chair position is to serve for a year and then to grow into that position of chair. So it's kind of that continuity so we can make sure that that person also continues to train up and be mentored and get ready to take the reins. So do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Hi, Kim. This is Kathy Rayleigh. I would be interested in that position.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. Any other interested folks?
Kimberly, this is Amy Book, and I'd like to throw my name in the hat as well.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So, and also just so folks are aware, Lita did get the opportunity to hire Amy and bring her on. So she is our new executive director. So our number 2, she reports to me and my team rolls up to Amy. So we're excited to welcome her to our team. So fantastic. So we've got 2 folks for vice chair. Anybody else? Okay, then I'll close the nominations. Daryl, how do you want to do the vote for this? Should we take the vote for the 2 offline and just do it via email?
Yeah, I was looking at, we do have a poll option in Google, but there's no way to restrict that just to voting members and 1 vote per person. So I think probably the better way would be to do it by email. If everyone wants to email me their vote, we can come back to this later in the meeting and see who had the most votes, and I can count those up as we go along.
Okay, fantastic. And for those of you that have only called in, do you want them to just text you or just try to email you if they can?
If you can email me, great. If you want to text me, that's fine too. I'll put well, if you're just on the phone, you can't see the chat, but my number is 970-286-4711. If you want to text it to me, that works as well.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. All right, so that will close the floor for now for the vice chair position, and that would open it up now for the secretary position. And the secretary position is the hardest working out of all of us because they have to set up the meeting, set up the agenda, keep everybody on track, and pull the meeting schedule together. So do we have any nominations for the position of secretary?
I nominate Daryl Brenson.
Did you see that bus coming, Daryl?
That was quick. You were right on that.
I almost interrupted Kimberly to say it.
Second.
I think it was a train.
Since the all the materials are kept on the PUC's Google Drive, I have to maintain it anyway. So if somebody else wants the nominal position of secretary, they're welcome to it. If nobody else wants it, I'm happy to continue.
Thank you, Daryl. Anybody else interested in secretary? Okay, then we'll close the floor for nominations for secretary. And if you are a voting member, we're going to go ahead and call for a vote of people that would disagree with the position of secretary going to Daryl Branson. So I'll open and call for a vote at this time. Okay, hearing none. Daryl, congratulations. Thank you for continuing that important role. So the next item on our agenda is the project update. So I'm going to ask you, Tina, if you would like to take over running the agenda at this time, or would you like me to close out this whole meeting?
If you wouldn't mind closing out this one, I'll just kind of pay attention and take some notes, and then I'll be good to go.
Sounds great. All right, so our next item would be the project update. And so Cindy, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an update.
So nothing has really changed since we met at the end of January. We have the 2 military bases, Shriver and Cheyenne Mountain, that are pending. Shriver was doing an inventory of all the fiber on base. That should be just about complete. And once we get the go-ahead on that, we'll schedule their install and look to close that out. So I think probably by the end of March, that one should be closed out. And then Cheyenne Mountain is in the process of connecting to the El Paso Teller network. So I know the circuits to connect have been ordered, but I believe they also have to swap out their call handling equipment to the CallWorks that is used by the El Paso Teller network. And I do not have an update on where they're at with that, but we'll get one and provide it to the group.
Hey, Cindy, this is Wes. Yeah. I can jump in real quick. I was just speaking with El Paso yesterday. They want to make a slight change to that network, the Ethernet network connecting to Cheyenne Mountain. And so I had to enter a new order for it. So it's probably pushed back. It's actually, it'll be a quick fix, but it's probably pushed back about 2 weeks. So I think that's probably still about 30 days out for Cheyenne Mountain.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Yeah, so for the ESInet upgrade project, that's kind of the last 2 outliers that we're looking to close out. We do have some other items that will affect a few of the PSAPs coming up. And Kimberly, I don't know if you want us to go into that right now or.
Yeah, let's just pause real quick for that and see if anybody has any questions about our final 2 PSAPs that need to get installed and migrated over, or if anybody from those locations, those military bases are on the call and want to ask you any questions.
Hi, hi. This is Mark. I'm from DISA.
Hi, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wanting to know if you had any of the details of the network issue that they're trying to connect with. I might be able to make a few calls and see what's going on.
Wes, I don't think there was any network issues, right? They just had a slight design for the Cheyenne Mountain connectivity.
That's correct. Yeah, there's no
Right.
issue, Mark, at all. It's just we're changing some ports around to connect to the existing network that El Paso has, where it was basically a 2-port Ethernet they had originally wanted, but we're going to just do one actually to make it easier and then connect to a large gig port that they already have.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
just changing the swing of how that Ethernet connection will work.
Right.
And actually it makes it easier. I wish I'd known that to begin with if they basically outlined it that way.
right. Yeah, that's probably more in accordance with we're swinging over to the zero trust architecture philosophy, and that might be part of it too. But yeah, I'm glad it's going to work out better. That's a good news.
Yep, it's all good. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, perfect. So then we're going to ask about any issues for the migrated PSAP. So Cindy, are you tracking any open tickets for our migrated PSAPs?
I do not have any.
Okay, so all the transfer issues, all of those pieces have been resolved or at least handed back clearly that it's being worked on by the PSAP and the CPE provider, because I know we had some outstanding items we talked about last month.
Yeah, and I think Vicki, I'm not sure if Vicki's on. I think the Summit County is still gone back and forth. We haven't had any updated transfer issues with them, but I don't want to say that one's closed out because that one continues to they have issues with the transfer to 10-digit numbers at Summit.
Okay, and I do see Vicki on. Vicki, do you have an update?
I have not had any current examples or any detail, so I'll reach back out and just verify, see if it's ongoing or and next steps. So that's the best I got right now.
Yeah, I know they had made some changes to kind of turn up the sound, I guess you will, on those digits. And I haven't heard any reports since then, but we'll confirm.
Okay, do we have anybody on from Summit County? I'm not seeing anyone today. Okay, and no other items that you're tracking that are open trouble tickets for the migrated PSAPs?
No.
Okay, do we have any of the PSAPs or authorities on that believe you have an open item that it's ESInet related that they should be tracking? If so, please go ahead and come off mute and make sure Cindy and Vicki know that. Okay, that's great. So Cindy, the item that you have for us, I know I don't have it called out on the agenda, but the floor is yours if you want to.
So the big issue, and Tracy's running this one, is going to be the area code overlay for Denver that's coming sometime this summer. I think they have it slated for June, but when we really run out of 303 and 720 numbers is to be determined. But there is an area code overlay coming to Denver, and this affects some sites because we already have, you're only allowed 4 MPD digits. For our 8-digit PSAPs, that's the digit that represents area code and tells the system what area code to prepend in front of a phone number for location data from the alley networks and such. We already have 4 in use in the state of Colorado, and because of number portability and such, they're in use in all of the selective router tandems. You're only allowed 4. and all of the systems can only handle 4 of those digits. This is a 5th. None of the systems can support a 5th MPD digit. So we need all of the PSAPs to be at 10 digits for their Annie-Alley before that area code goes into effect. So there's a handful, we believe around 20 or so sites that were still on 8 digits when we converted them to the ESInet. We're confirming, and Tracy has been working with Entrado to actually look at the Alley Annie queries to confirm who is still actually at 8 digits, because one of the things that was done in preparation for the ESInet migration was to switch everyone to a format that supported either 10 or 8. So you can switch your system at any time without telling us. So we're looking at the most recent bids to get a narrowed list of who is actually still at 8 digits. And then we need to work with you and Daryl on a communication plan to work with these sites to see what it will take to get them to 10 digits.
So I want to just talk through this a little bit. And I appreciate all that information. And when we first started the project as it relates to going to 10 digits, that was the best practice that was outlined by Lumen, was if you weren't at 10 digit, to move over to 10 digit. We know that some of the PSAPs and the programming required on the CPE side, it was just going to be a heavy lift. And that's where Lumen made the change in the equipment to say, okay, we're going to take 8 or 10. So you guys did that early on, I want to say around the 2nd or 3rd PSAP migration. You went and made that change. So having that report to know how many PSAPs opted not to make the change to 10 digit versus 8 digit, that'll be critical. What time frame are we looking at getting that report back from you?
Is Tracy on? I think she's on. We have the list of who on at last check we show as that. Tracy's working with Entrado right now to narrow that down and validate that list. But I would think by the end of next week we should have that list. Tracy, jump in if I'm completely crazy.
She's trying to get off mute, so we'll hang tight, Tracy, while you try and get off mute.
Tracy, I should warn you, sometimes on Google Meets, you have to call in on your phone if you actually want to talk. You can't always unmute on your computer.
Well, and we'll watch the chat update. Yeah. So she indicated that she should have it next week. So we're going to put a deliverable date from Lumen for the 18th of February that we should have that information by February 18th. And then that way we can package it up and work with you guys on getting that out.
Yeah. And the big concern and impact this has is once that area code goes into play, because there's not an MPD digit available, if you got a call from a number that had this new area code, you would be dipping the wrong Annie. You would be either prepending a 303 or a 720 number to what is a 983, or I can't remember the exact area code that we're putting in, but it's a 9 something number. And the system just wouldn't know and would grab the wrong one.
So our suspense schedule on this would be to have the work done at the PSAP level by the 1st of June. Is that correct? Or do you need it more like the 1st of May?
No, honestly, I think it'll probably be later in the year before that area code actually starts getting assigned. We're planning for a mid-June, but talking to the planning team, they don't think that it'll actually be needed until later in the year.
Is there any way that you can get us a hard date that this has to be done by, or when do you think you'd be able to give us that hard date?
We'll go back to the project manager over this area code overlay, and we'll get you a date. But I would shoot for July 1st at the latest.
Okay. Okay, yeah, if we can get that hard date, that'll be important. So the communication to the PSAPs could include that because they're going to need to engage their CPE vendor for that work that they're going to need to do
Yeah.
in their CPE equipment. And then from a work perspective for the PSAPs and authorities on the call, if you're on the list and you need to make that migration change, it's database entry. And so the work will range. I don't know all of your CPEs as it relates to what it's going to require for a CallWorks versus a Viper. But we went through this work early on in 2013. We did that migration over to 10-digit. So it's just something really important to do, and it does take time, but we'll try and scope that for you when we send out that communication.
Yeah. And anyone that is on SIP, you automatically converted to 10 digits with that SIP upgrade. So this only will affect PSAPs that have that PGM legacy PSAP gateway at your sites and are still on that CAMA signaling into your call handling equipment.
Thank you, Cindy. Does anybody have any questions for Cindy about this? This is a pretty big one. Okay. All right, Cindy, do you have any other open project update items that you need to provide?
No, that was it.
Okay. And all right, well then we will move on to the old business. So the first item for our old business is the proposed tariff amendment for ECATs. So I'm not sure if that's going to be Wes or Tim.
Well, I can jump in. I haven't heard from anybody, so I don't know if that means I wrote it so well or that no one's read it. So you tell me.
So Tim, I'll tell you from a LEDA perspective, we've just been really busy, and I'm going to assume that many of us probably have been in the same boat, served with multiple CORAs about our emergency alert system. So every free moment has been preparing documents and getting documents ready for public release. So from a date perspective, are we able to have delivery of a review and comments and feedback to you, kick this can another month, and set March? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I mean, it is for me. You know, it's up to you all how much time you'd like to take a look. We want to make sure that you've had the opportunity, and I understand folks are busy. So if you want to just set a date for another 3-4 weeks as a deadline to offer some review, and maybe when's our next, I don't know what the cadence of these meetings is. Is this what, monthly now?
Correct. Yeah. So it would be March 9th. And so would you like all the feedback by February 28th or March 2nd, a good week ahead of the meeting? Would that be acceptable?
Sure, that'd be fine if that's acceptable to all of you, to give you enough time, and then we use the next meeting as a discussion point. And if review is done sooner, or there are some larger concerns that folks have that we want to talk out of cycle, that's fine with me as well. Whatever makes sense for you all.
Okay.
Tim, I'd like to share a little feedback I got, because I sent this out again yesterday over the ESInet users group email list, just to remind people that we would be talking about it today. And I got an email back from one of the smaller PSAPs later in the evening saying that they had not been able to, they didn't attend the workshop, and they haven't been able to attend the users group meetings as regularly as they would like, because they're a small PSAP and they're, he wears a lot of hats.
Sure.
And his concern was that they already have ECATs. And I know this came up at the workshop as well. They already have ECATs, so I think there was a discontent over the fact that he would essentially be paying for ECATs twice under his current contract and also under the tariff. Was there any discussion between CenturyLink and Intrado about maybe letting those existing customers off the hook for the rest of their contract as part of this?
Yeah, a little bit. We and I learned the same thing at the workshop, that there were actually, I think there's maybe, I don't know, Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was maybe 2 or 3 that might have that out there. And so, yeah, we've been talking with Intrado about what should we do. And one of the thoughts that we had after the workshop, we got together and thought, we could do something similar to how we rolled out the ESInet to begin with, which is over a period of time. You don't have to take it just yet, but by date certain, we can look at what those contracts are and do it that way. Or, like you just said, Daryl, the other solution would be just to have Intrado terminate those. We haven't gotten final resolution on that, but those are the kind of the 2 things we're looking deeper at to accommodate that particular situation.
And Daryl, I would have those authorities take a look at their contract for ECATs. I know my contract for ECATs, as well as most of my contracts, have a termination for convenience. So we would be able to use that clause to be able to. It's not as if Intrado's not still going to get money out of us for ECATs. It would just be in a different fashion. So I can't see that it would be a big deal to terminate for convenience.
Okay, I will pass that piece of advice along to them, Bruce. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Daryl. So for the tariff amendment, the due date for PSAP's authorities is to have comments back to Tim by March 2nd. So comments back to Tim by March 2nd, and then that allows you a good couple of weeks to review it. If you have questions or have concerns, you want to reach out to me, to Tina, to Daryl, feel free to reach out to one of us and we can kind of talk through tariff amendments. But of course, Lumen's available to answer those questions too. So Tim, we've got it down as an action item. Thank you.
You bet. And I just threw my email into the chat for those that may not have it. And Daryl, I appreciate you forwarding that through the listserv. I apparently am not allowed to do that. That seemed to be what the error I got back was, that I didn't have authority to email using that.
I will double check the permissions. If the permissions are set up so that you can, it might be something on CenturyLink's side that's preventing you from doing that, but I'll double check it.
Yeah, I'll just figure that out. But that was something I meant to say to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next item would just be an update on the text to 911 and spatial call routing amendments that Lumen is working on. So Wes, I believe you were going to give an update on that. Maybe we'll have you do it, Tim.
No. Hello.
We hear you.
Kimberly, it's Wes. I'm back. My IT guys found that this is a good time to restart my computer for uploading software, so I just dialed in here, and my computer died. I'm still waiting on Intrado to give us the dollar data for converting the text to the ESInet, and something similar to ECATs is they've got to let us know what it would be for those that already have their existing text services with Intrado and what they want to do to convert. So I don't have an update for you, Kimberly. I trust that that can happen certainly in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Now, but bottom line though, we do want to mutually do that, to offer it. Certainly the goal is still there, as it was to begin with, to do this. And Intrado has changed their position. At one point, they were going to say, okay, you can just write it with Intrado. But now it's back that they want to run that through us, since we are the front-facing with the customer for ESInet, to put it all on one side here. So waiting for that detail. And I think we'll just send out another email maybe in the next week or two when we meet with their senior management to get to clearly define exactly what those costs and what that transition looks like.
Okay. Sounds great, Wes. And do we need to have additional calls or some time on an agenda to talk about spatial call routing based on the call that you and I had, and just from a big picture, ongoing maintenance, change management, all the pieces with GIS, spatial call routing? There's so many layers to this. Do we need to have a focus session that we spend a good couple hours talking through logistics on how and if that, I guess it's just the breakdown of where the demarcation is, right? And trying to determine what would be PSAP responsibility or authority responsibility for developing a point-based address map and contracting maybe with Entrado for those services versus what's tariffed. And that would be the configuration to do spatial call routing against that GIS data, or snipping all the GIS layers together and getting a statewide set. So I think there's a lot that we need to really dive into, kind of getting into those painful details. So my recommendation would be like a focus meeting that we're just GIS heavy, and of course Matt could run all of that because he's our GIS expert. But I do see a need to dive into this a little bit more before you guys even draft a amendment.
Oh, I agree, absolutely, and yeah, you helped quite a bit in our subsequent conversation on that. GIS is complex, and it's complex particularly so in Colorado's case, when we've got it kind of runs the whole cafeteria between those that are already on that pathway and they have a lot of resources and funds to basically get that GIS MSAG updated, and they're on the way now, and to others that for whatever reasons aren't quite there. And to have a gap analysis probably is a good starting point in what Entrado wants to do to understand that. They've got to come back and I think offer something that, what does that gap analysis look like maybe for some counties that don't have that GIS resource existing now? That's going to be a pretty heavy lift. So where they were originally pricing things was, well, based upon state averaging, which is the fairest thing for the whole state to level set and get everybody moving forward in almost in a lockstep. But I think this GIS thing, to your point, is pretty complex. So I think we probably do need to break it out and maybe have Matt and all of, other interested parties and focusing on what does it take then to upload the data and fairly do that. And to what extent would Entrado's offer weigh in on that, as opposed to maybe some folks doing it on their own? And the other side of that demarc, where they're already on that pathway. And the second part, what about ongoing management? So
right.
It's not easily answered, Kimberly. And so we need some guidance too from the whole community here in the state on the best way to approach that. Okay.
And Matt, you had a comment and hopefully solutions, right? You're going to give us all the answers. Go ahead, Matt.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I'm waiting to hear, Matt. Go ahead. If you could summarize it in just maybe 5 minutes.
Me? 5 minutes? I just wanted to note that Datamark reached out to the GIS committee of the task force inquiring about efforts for GIS data readiness. And so for lack of hearing any movement and action from any of the other players, we have been working with Datamark to develop initial surveys for GIS departments, PSAPs, 911 authority boards, just sort of an initial look at GIS data readiness for next gen. So I think that if the BESP and Entrado could also really pick up the slack on what they see as their needs for the service, for where we're going with their own maybe more detailed survey questionnaire to be sent out, that would be fantastic.
Matt, what didn't the state at one point was maybe going to do something? Was there any remnant of that that we could follow up on, or is it just basically a state a refreshed survey as a starting point?
The state governor's office of IT GIS department was initially interested and excited to help create and put out that survey to their contacts at the local GIS departments around the state. And then we never heard back from them after a couple of tries. So in that regard, we were kind of on our own, right? So we have to do that gap analysis ourselves.
But my point, I thought they sent out a survey and there wasn't even there was only a certain percentage that responded back. Do I remember correctly, or is that not relevant?
Well, it may be true, but it's not how I remember it.
Okay.
They've also had some staffing changes over there. My understanding is they have a new GIS director at OIT. I do have a meeting with that person coming up, so we'll be talking about some of the stuff and hopefully set the stage for setting up a meeting, a wider meeting with you, Matt, and other people.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that this GIS conversation definitely, I mean, we know we have the subcommittee for the 911 task force, so we got to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts or duplicating conversations, but we should probably merge or fold into some of those conversations, Matt, about GIS readiness. And then again, from a tariff ESInet perspective, really talking about at what part are we trying or needing to or that should fall on the side of the demarcation of the tariff versus the side of data management and ongoing data support. That could always be contracted with an outside vendor, right? Because some people do that from an outside vendor perspective, some people do it in-house, and some people just aren't doing it quite yet. So I definitely think we need to have an action item on this. So Matt will work with you and maybe set up a meeting with your committee individuals and fold in anybody from the ESInet that wants to focus and fold in Lumen, and we'll have a GIS conversation.
I think a key thing to remember about that is we need to find out from Lumen and Intrado how much data scrubbing they're going to have to do as a part of their services, just sort of inherently, so that while we want to allow local stakeholders to acquire data services or do it themselves, however they choose, we don't end up in a situation where we're duplicating efforts and essentially then paying twice for them.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And Lita did go through the process. We did a data review with DataMark, and then Intrado does have tools, and we use their tools to get our data readiness evaluation done. And we use those tools every month to evaluate our data in relation to spatial call routing and if it's ready to plug and play. So they being Intrado and Lumen should have that information, and they have our county that they can also show, here's the data in its native development, and here's what's required on our end to have it drop in and be used for spatial call routing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really just from a change management perspective, and once our data was ready, meeting what was required, there wasn't any other additional changes Intrado has to make on their end. But I think walking through even the project that we've been doing could be a good way to start the conversation. Kind of, I'm not going to say ours is in the end state, but here's what our understanding is of what's needed and required from a GIS end goal for spatial call routing.
Because if we're all going to be uploading revised data, say on a monthly basis, they're going to have to test that updated data as they take it in and consume it so that it can work in their systems. And I would like to hear in detail how much and what is involved in that testing, so that that if our authorities contract externally or do it in-house, we're not duplicating anything at extra cost.
Yep, we need that end result. What state must it be in? What tables are required? All of that has to be identified, and then the authorities get to decide how they're going to get there, right? That's the beauty of all of that. So Wes, can you take the point on making sure we have the right folks from Lumen and Intrado engaged for a GIS specific conversation, and I'll fold in Ben with my team, and we can talk about our project and the data and that data readiness as a starting point.
I absolutely welcome that. I actually have a call with Intrado at 7 o'clock Friday morning. The guy that is the new guy on point from them. He'll be supplementing what Rich Johnston talked about. So yeah, and then subsequent to that meeting, hopefully next week, let's figure out a time to kick this thing off. I think daylight's burning on us, so we really need to. It's going to take a while, I think, to get to a point that probably everybody is best served by however we approach this. So we need to jump on it. So I'll ask for sometime maybe later on next week. We can have a call with Lumen and Trado and whomever else wants to be on that.
Okay, and we may need to go a couple weeks out so we can have people clear their schedules and accommodate. But if we want to start Wes with a call with us and then do a larger call that we announce and publish set for just a couple more weeks out so people can adjust their schedule. Yeah, Rich, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks. Just to give a little bit more background on that, I absolutely agree. Let's have the discussion and let you know kind of where we stand, what our existing solution offers. We have a whole bunch of documentation, a GIS roles and responsibilities document that goes through all the expectation, the formats, how the information is processed, the QA/QC process through our what we call the NENA name for it is our spatial interface. So we do have that documentation. I think primarily what we pulled out of the meeting a few weeks ago was the direction of getting the GIS piece parts in the tariff were onboarding pieces, so specific resources to help that GIS authority along with that training and how they'll update and how they'll ongoing service that. But primarily what we pulled out is there's this other need, which is kind of a pre-assessment, right? And which I think what Matt was talking about with Datamart. We are working on that discussion now of how we can present something to all the PSEPs to say, here, we want to give you a feel and get a feel for where you stand today. You know, the big piece of it is that recommended 98% match rate between the address street center lines and address points in the M side. So getting up to that point, so providing a sort of a pre-service to go in there with the PSAPs and do that comparison and say, okay, you're at 96% or you're at 42%. You have a lot of work to do or you have a very little work to do. So that pre-conversation or pre-validation is what we're working with Wes to come up with a strategy to present an offer to the PSAPs to have that discussion to see where they currently stand.
And I'm going to say for us, that was critical, doing that pre-evaluation assessment and learning where our data stood from an Entrado, Lumen, spatial call routing perspective was incredibly helpful. It also allowed us to focus our development efforts. And so, Rich, I just want to say that we would love to have that assessment free for all of the PSAPs authorities so they know where their data is in good faith for this next step in the tariff. So just want to throw that out there. But Mark, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to help out with you guys if that's okay. I've got even though I work with this and now I have a long background with both Entrado, but also as a GIS professional, and helped out a great deal with the state of Florida trying to do the same thing. And we hear a lot of information at DISA from across the country about the same efforts, and we're looking at the same efforts ourselves with our own PSAPs. So if I could help out and maybe learn some, that would be great.
Mark, that would be fantastic. Can you put your contact information in the chat so Matt can grab that? Matt is chairing the GIS committee for the task force.
Mark, I think you just volunteered to join the GIS committee, right?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yes, sir.
I'll send you the URL to the committee webpage with some resources and a link to join.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. All right, anything else on this GIS topic? This is going to be our big one.
Yep, it sure is. And
okay. So the next item on our agenda is the LA hardware update. We were waiting on hardware. Vicki, do we have the hardware and has the project started up again?
Sorry, I had to find my mute button. The project has started up again, and in actuality, we're about 80% complete.
Great.
So the majority of the PSAPs have been migrated to the new Alley hardware. The last few have been tough to schedule, so I'm still working through that, but they've moved on to Minnesota to start doing those, and we'll supplement with Colorado PSAPs as I can get them confirmed.
Okay. Are you running into any issues or concerns?
Nope. Just we need test calls made from the PSAP just to 911 to confirm Alley before we migrate. So if we call in at the appropriate time and the PSAP's really busy for some reason, it's been difficult to get some of those test calls made. But otherwise, we've been working around that and just trying to find good times, a good time frame for these final PSAPs to finish up.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Vicki. Anybody have any questions for Vicki about the hardware update? Okay, in our billing late fees issue, I believe we were just inundating Wes for account management on these items. Anybody have an outstanding item that needs attention of this group that they haven't been able to resolve with Wes? Okay, if you do have a billing issue or concern or something just is getting late fees tacked on, please make sure you reach out to Wes. Matt, go ahead.
Actually, this is Mandy. I'm in Matt's office. Wes, I just want to confirm that San Miguel County, on behalf of SMETSA, has reached out to you for some of their billing issues. It came up at the last SMETSA meeting, and I know that they don't often attend all these, and I don't see the list as to who's here and who's not. So I just, on behalf of them, asking the question.
Yeah, that was something I think that was a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. They reached out to that, and the CSM, Kathy, was addressing that. I have not heard since, so I shouldn't assume that that's taken care of, but I think that it probably has been. I'll look into it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. And then our next item would be questions from the PSAPs to Lumen. So if any of the PSAPs authorities on the call today have anything about the ESInet project or where we're going, this would be your time to address those concerns.
Hey, it's Andrew in Denver. Wes, I just shot you an email. It's more of an offline conversation, so.
Oh, sure. Sorry. I'll get it when I redo the computer here.
No worries.
This is Jennifer. I don't have a question so much as just an update and giving Vicki a heads up. Those of us on the Western region got together last week and did a little busy and outage routing mapping. And our next steps are to reach out to Vicki with some questions that we have and to make sure that that Lumen can support the mapping that we came up with. So Vicki, you'll be getting an email from me in the next, probably by the end of the week, with some possible dates and times where we could just have a quick hour-long conversation with you to get some questions answered and to make sure that this map looks like something Lumen can support.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
And Jennifer, that's a great project, and it's awesome to hear that the region got together and did that. And if you haven't done that and you're not sure and you haven't tested or retested or just talked through your routing and busy and the rollover scenarios, it's a great thing to be doing right now just to keep it fresh. So that's awesome. All right, the Lumen team, do you have anything for us that you wanted to bring up?
This is Wes. I'm good.
Okay. All right, well, before we move on to public comment, Daryl, election results.
I received 14 votes. I know there's more 911 authorities on here than 14, so I'm going to assume that those who did not vote are fine with either candidate. But the winner right now is Kathy Raley.
Okay, fantastic. So Kathy, congratulations as the vice chair. Welcome to the team, and we look forward to having you help with the meetings moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. All right, so now we're on to public comment. So anybody that is on that's not a voting member, if you have any items for us to consider.
Hey, Kim, this is Joel Estes from AdCom. Sorry I got on the call a little bit late. I know you guys have already crossed this bridge, but I just wanted to bring it up. I've mentioned in the past we've had some issues with 911 misroutes, and I know there was a feeling at CenturyLink that they were not actual 911 calls, but I've got several examples that came up recently, both in late January and early February, and I'll shoot those over to the folks at Lumen to take a look and work with our people at Converge One to see what we can do about getting these problems addressed.
Hey, Joel, on the ones that you have tracked, when you say 911 misroutes, the Annie Alley indicates it should be ringing in Thornton and it's actually presenting to AdCom. Is it that kind of misroute?
So we had some transfers actually. We had 2 that were supposed to go to Denver and went to Arapahoe back on 2-4. We had 4 that we attempted to send to Westminster but got a busy signal. We've had some that were supposed to go to Aurora and they wouldn't transfer at all. So we've got a kind of a mix of things going on.
Okay, and on those 911 transfers, was it a mix also of 911 to 911 or 911 to 10 digit?
It was 911 to 911 is what Carrie told me.
Okay. So do you have a ticket that you guys opened up with Lumen on the 1-800 number by chance?
I'd have to get back to Carrie. I assume that did happen, but I can't say for certain on that.
Okay, and Carrie's with Converge One, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you could have Carrie package all that stuff up and get it over to Cindy and Vicky, and if you can go ahead and CC Tina as the new chair for this group, and go ahead and CC me so that way Tina, I can kind of talk to you about what we're looking at for this and the history behind it. That would be really helpful, Joel.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Hey, Joel, this is Wes. And Vicky, are you still online? Hey, Joel, we did work on level setting the 2 PRIs that you have going into AdCom, and working with this is not related to that. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're still having issues with that, but that's separate from this.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure. Thanks.
Okay, great. Anybody have any other items? All right, so a little bit longer meeting, but fantastic discussion, everyone. I really appreciate it. And we have a lot of work to do, which is always fun, right? So thank you for getting on the call today. I appreciate it. And again, congratulations to the new folks that are going to be chairing and leading this group. And we look forward to hearing from you shortly. So we have several action items that we captured. So we'll be looking for those emails as well from Lumen. So everybody have a great rest of your day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, all.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you.